I have the great pleasure, and I'm thrilled to be able to introduce our keynote speaker today, which is Lolo Jones. Lolo is a three-time summer and winter Olympian in both track and bobsled, a unique combination. World champion in 60-meter hurdles, 100-meter hurdles, and the bobsled. She is also a three-time NCAA champion, author, podcast host, and mental health associate. She has a special connection to the Salvation Army, and we are so grateful that she is here to share her story with us today. So please, let's give a warm Syracuse and Salvation Army welcome to Lolo Jones.
Thank you guys so much. This is actually my first time in Syracuse, but it feels like home. Okay, it feels like home because the Salvation Army is so near and dear to me, and I can't wait to share my journey about how much they've helped me along the way. I just wanted to thank the Salvation Army Board for having me out here today. I want to thank Major Charles and Kelly Roberts as well. And can we, I don't know why the mic keeps blaring up on me. I promise you guys I'm professional. And then I also wanted to thank the Heiner Hoyt Corporation for as well helping, and the Kettle sponsors for doing the 6-to-1 match. That is amazing. Got to tell you a little bit about my night last night, though, because it is my first time out here in the city. And they were like, we'd like to take you to dinner. You know, I'm getting a text message and from Major, and I've never met Major before, so I was like, I want to see the city, see the vibe. And the text read, "I'll see you at 6:45, oh my darling." And I was like, that is so unprofessional. I went from 0 to red quick, and I text my agent, and I was just like, do you know anything about this guy? Is he trying to go on a date with me? Like, I feel very uncomfortable. Is it going to be safe? And he goes, that's the name of the restaurant. So Ryan Ben's, your restaurant, kind of threw me off for a loop. I almost canceled this whole day. But thank you guys for having me out here. And I also want to just thank everybody in this room, because if you don't feel like you've made an impact or helped, my journey is going to show you how someone helped me to be in the position I am just from the Salvation Army. And so growing up, if you don't know much about my background, my childhood was rough. My dad was in and out of prison. My mom, 5 kids, single mom. And, we hit some really rough patches. One of those moments, and as a kid, you're kind of aware, but not really. All I remember is one day my mom comes to me, and she tells me and my other siblings to get a blanket. Take just a blanket. And then she gets us all bundled up. It's cold. I lived in Des Moines, Iowa. She packs us in this car, and we're in this car, and we're just driving around. And I don't know where we're going. And finally, after a lot of driving around, we arrive at a Salvation Army. And at the time, I did not know what was going on. But my mom told me, she goes, "We are now homeless. I have lost the house. I have no means to provide for you guys." She's like, when I packed you guys in that car, I had no clue where I was going. So I just kept driving. And that's when she remembered the Salvation Army and how they help families, how they help the community. And so we actually lived in the basement area of a Salvation Army for quite a while. And I remember, because the Salvation Army was my home church. That's where I would go to church on the weekends. Actually, I'd like to say it's almost like a babysitter. My mom, when she was working 2 jobs, because they would have a Wednesday service, they would have a Saturday, Sunday, they'd have kids programs, summer camp. I feel like my mom used the Salvation Army as a babysitter. So I was aware of the church, but that was my first time actually learning and seeing everything the community outreaches. So, it was weird because we were housed in this church, and then they would have the summer camps come in, and I was a part of that summer camp. So I would actually go out early so the kids wouldn't know I was staying in the homeless shelter part of the church. And so that was my first experience of how much a family can hit rock bottom and how much they just need help. And so the Salvation Army was my home church growing up. My mom was able to get her feet back on the ground with the assistance of them, and we just continued to just have to use, whether it was their food banks or, we had the canteen trucks would come around and help provide meals in the morning. And so really that was the assistance that gave me the actual food. Without their support, I would not have had many meals. And so I go to high school, and I'm in track and field because with the rocky instability of my family's circumstances, I needed something that was stable, and so I leaned on sports. And track and field I was kind of naturally good at, and so I just put all of my attention and energy into that. And I realized at one point I could get a scholarship, and that scholarship was gonna be my way to break out of poverty. And a lot of people ask me now that I've made 3 Olympic teams, they're like, when did you know you wanted to be an Olympic athlete? At what point were you watching the Olympics on TV? Was there some amazing, incredible competition that inspired you? For me, I simply was just trying to get out of poverty. I wanted to be the first one to go to college and graduate from my family, and I knew that getting a scholarship was my only way. And so I put all my attention into that, and I was able to get a full ride to LSU and run track there. And so I'm like, this is amazing, right? Gonna just kill it here. Had no clue that my coach, when I arrived on campus, as well signed 3 of the other best hurdlers in the United States to compete for LSU, and one of us was gonna lose our scholarship at the end of the year. So the moment I went to practice, day 1, and I'm looking at my other competitors that are also my teammates, I knew that if I didn't have a good season, that I would only be able to attend university for 1 year. So I just worked as hard as I could, and I thrived, really did well. I became an NCAA champion. I was one of the best on the team to help the team win the overall national team title, and we did that multiple times. Broke record after record, and that's when the Olympic dream started to be placed on me, like, you might be good enough to make an Olympic team. And I was like, I'm just here for the education. I just want to focus on that. And then when I won my NCAA overall title, then my coach was like, we need to make a push for this. And so I was like, sure, let's go for it. So I go to my first Olympic trials, and I don't know if you guys know anything about the Olympic trials, but now it's not just collegiate athletes. I've just graduated college. I got a degree in economics. So I'm like, if this Olympic thing doesn't work out, I'm good. I'm gonna go get a regular job. I won't have to run again. Thank you, goodbye. But I really wanted to see if I could make an Olympic team. And I go there, and I'm running against people that are Olympic champions. And I'm in this college uniform. I'm probably like 120 something pounds, and I look over next to me is Gail Devers. Her nails are like probably 10 pounds alone, and I'm like, she's ripped to shreds, sponsored by Nike, and I'm like, you want me to beat her? Like, what world were you thinking this? And so I give my best effort and do not even make the finals. Not even top 9 in the US. And to make an Olympic team, you have to be the top 3 that cross the finish line. And so I thought that was it for me. Well, we're talking about hope tonight. Hope is undefeated, but it can be delayed. And that delayed can make you feel like it won't happen. And so for me, that's what I thought. I was crushed. I was like, I tried, it's over, I'll try to figure out something else for my life. And my coach was like, no, we're gonna try this again, and every year you're just gonna get a little bit better. And so that's what I did. And my first year, I struggled really hard. I didn't get a Nike contract or Adidas. I wasn't sponsored by a professional sporting shoe company. So I worked at a local gym, and I worked at Home Depot. I worked these part-time jobs to make ends meet, and then I'd go run a track race, and then I'd go back to these jobs. And for me, that helped me understand what my mother went through when she was raising us, because my mom worked back-to-back jobs trying to support 5 kids. So much so that she never really had time to spend with us. She never had time to go to my track meets because she was always just working. And, you know, it was weird because those moments would actually shape my foundation of her putting us in summer camps with the Salvation Army and, you know, learning these different crafts and abilities to, you know, use for later on. So I remember after trying to be a professional athlete, I'm struggling financially, and I'm like, Coach, this isn't working out. You know, like, I'm getting 5th through 8th in every race. Like, I really feel like we should give it up. And he's like, just keep pressing in another step. There's always the part of a workout, and many of you guys probably aren't professional athletes, but you've done a workout. And the hardest part of a workout is, one, to just even start. Just to start. Something you're like, I don't want to go to the gym. Just to get out of bed and go. And then also to finish. The in-between is usually where you can get in a rhythm. But if you have those setbacks of motivation, that's where you got to press through. And that's what we did. And I went back to another Olympic trial. So this is 2008. I go there, and it's completely different from my last Olympic trials. Not only did I make the final, I was the fastest in the United States, and I made my first Olympic team. Thank you. And not only that, not only was I the fastest in the United States, I was the fastest in the world. I went from an unknown to the best in the world in that. And all of a sudden, the media, the attention, they're like, who's this girl? Who's this Lolo? Like, everybody's pulling at you. Like, she could win the Olympic medal. It was insane. And I was kind of a bit overwhelmed. I'm starting to get invites to go to these appearances. I'm having meet and greets with, like, the president, you know? And just flashing back, from a girl that grew up homeless in Iowa, Des Moines, Iowa, it could have been overwhelming, but it wasn't. One of the odd things I did at a summer camp, and I actually was a Sunbeam, a Salvation Army Sunbeam. If you don't know what that is, it's the Girl Scouts of the Salvation Army. And so what you do is you take these classes and you get a badge for every skill set you learn. One of the skills is sewing. One of the skill sets is actually how to eat at a formal dinner. So now, I've just made my first Olympic team. I'm getting invites to sit down and have lunch with the president, meet and greets. Talk about your placement of forks. You ever seen Pretty Woman? And she's like, I don't know what fork I'm supposed to use. Sunbeam taught me which fork to use. I got a badge for that. I was like, I know what I'm doing here. I'm classy. So weird situations that, you know, when you're investing into the Salvation Army and you're investing into this community, you don't know what seeds you're planting and what those seeds are going to do for someone else down the road. Who knew someone that donated in the 80s to a local Salvation Army, or maybe dropped some money to someone ringing a bell, who knew that money was going to help my family and help me get into being an athlete and get, you know, our lives together and then become an Olympian? And that Olympian's now sitting down with presidents and, you know, people who make billions of dollars that I don't. But it just shows you the power of a seed. And so that was one of the classes. And, you know, I also did the Salvation Army summer camps. And I don't know, do you guys do the summer camps here? So this is like, they hustle the kids off. I'm sure the parents need a break. praise God. And these kids go, I don't know how long the camps are now, but I feel like it was like a week or two. And so you go to these camps as a kid, and these kids are from all over that region. And you go to them, you have cabins, and then, but it's a schedule, right? Like you wake up, and then you go watch the flag. Like someone puts the flag up, there's a whole ceremony for this flag, then someone brings the flag down at night, folds it like military, and it's a respect and honor thing. Talk about now, 20 years later, I'm running for Team USA, and the highest honor is to get on the podium to hear and see that flag raised. My core from the Salvation Army of being at a summer camp and learning how to respect and show honor was just already instilled in me. And then, I don't really want to say this, but it was like a mini Olympic village because you had kids from all over, you got bunk beds. Look, the Olympic Village is not a Ritz-Carlton, okay? You got roommates, it's the same setup. It's buffet-style food. Those summer camps prepared me for an Olympic Village, for sure. So I'm thrilled. I go to my first Olympics, you know, I'm happy to represent Team USA. Everybody's like, she's gonna not only is she gonna win, she's gonna break the Olympic record. She has got this in the bag. And I remember I was flying over to Beijing, China, and I was sitting on the plane, and there was a guy next to me, and he had USA Today, and it had all the medal predictions for track and field. And I was like, don't look, don't look. And I looked, and it said, Lolo Jones predicted to win gold. And I was like, let's go. So I go to my first Olympics. I stay in the zone. I don't sightsee. I am laser focused. And I remember the competition comes around, and I'm running the first rounds. Easy, win with ease. And then the next day we have semifinals, finals. Semifinals happen. I run so fast, I run a personal best. For it to be the Olympics, it was one of the easiest races I've ever had in my life. The finals were about an hour and a half later. I remember being on the start line, calm, but also nervous, a good nervous. It was almost like being in the eye of a storm. Everything's swirling around you, the crowd's going crazy, there's a ton of bright lights, but I was in the eye of the storm, and I was ready and prepared to execute. The starter says, runners take your mark. I go, stand right before my blocks, get in them, set, the gun goes off. And I remember I react, and I'm out, and it's me and this Australian girl, and we're battling it tick for tack. But I remember that I've raced her before. She gets out good, but I'm a stronger finisher. And so I just kept executing, and I start to pull away from her, and everything is going amazing. And I knew I was running the fastest race of my life and completely in the lead. And then out of nowhere, I hit the 9th hurdle. I have never hit a hurdle like that in my life. In fact, I am actually one of the cleanest hurdlers. When we started learning how to hurdle in high school, all the other girls are hitting hurdles, falling down. I would never hit a hurdle. So I finally hit a hurdle at the biggest race of my life. I hit that hurdle, and I was like, maybe I can still pull away the bronze. And I crossed the finish line, and I look up at the scoreboard, and it was seventh place. No gold, no silver, no bronze, 7th. And I just collapsed to the track, and I just started crying. And I was like, you just felt everything you worked so hard for ripped away. I was so devastated, I couldn't even have the energy to stand up. Like, just my insides were just completely gutted. And as I laid there on the track crying, I remember God whispering to me, but you're here. But you're here. And 4 years ago, I was sitting at home watching the Olympics on TV crying because I didn't make the team. And now I'm on the actual track. And so for me, even though I felt hopeless in the moment and I felt everything was for nothing, it wasn't, because progress was done. And I had to remember that even though it's not the end goal, there's still moments where you need to be thankful for the progress you've made. And had I not hit that hurdle, I wouldn't have had the fierce intensity in me for the next 4 years to train again. I probably would have stopped. And so after I, did a whole bunch of therapy sessions, Lolo Jones lost Olympic gold, Lolo Jones. I remember going to the grocery store and they're like, oh, you're that girl that lost that gold medal, huh? I was like, I'm just trying to get a box of macaroni and cheese, but thank you. I did pick myself back up, and I used that devastating moment as my motivation to make another Olympic team. But this time it was different. This time it wasn't as easy. This time I wasn't the fastest runner in the world. And actually it was getting dead last because I had spinal surgery the year before. It was so bad, they were like, there's no way Lolo Jones is going to make this Olympic team. No way. I remember NBC talking about it. Everybody had counted me out. And I went to the Olympic trials for the London team. And in the first round, I almost was out. There's 3 rounds, and I was the last person to squeak into the semifinals. In the semifinals, I got 3rd. Now remember what I told you, you have to get 3rd in the last race to make the Olympic team. So getting 3rd in the semifinal round means pretty much you're not making an Olympic team. So I go to the finals, I'm freaking out, and I'm like, Coach, he was like, just execute, and we need to just focus on one hurdle at a time. He was like, when you get to that start line, I don't want you to think about the finish. I don't want you to think about the 10 things you have to overcome. I want you to think about that first hurdle and just getting over one hurdle. So when I got to that start line, that's all I did. I focused on one hurdle, then the next one. I don't even remember what place I was in the race because I was just focused on being in the moment. And when I crossed the line, I squeaked out and got 3rd by .000 something. Didn't matter. I was stoked. I was going crazy. And I made my 2nd Olympic team. And so I just felt, okay, God's going to line this all up. It's going to be the redemption story, baby. We're coming back. She hit lost her gold medal. She's going to go to London and win it. I go to London. I'm running good in the rounds. And I remember in semifinals, it was just a really hot field. It was, to this day, it's one of the hottest Olympic races ever. And so it was so intense that I almost didn't make the final. It was down between me and a Great Britain girl to see who was going to advance at the Olympics. And we're both looking at the times things as they compile them underneath the Olympic Stadium as the crowd's going crazy. And I knew it was going to be me or her. And my name popped up to advance to the finals, and hers didn't. She started crying, devastated. I gave her a real quick pat, and then I went to the warm-up track because I only had 45 minutes to get ready for the finals. So I go, get ready, go back out for the finals. I'm on the start line, and I'm like, this is what I've waited for. I have, overcome not making an Olympic team. I've overcome spine surgery. I am going to get what is mine. So I go through the race, and this one I don't remember. It's like a blur. I just was in the moment, but literally it was fighting for my life. And I crossed the line, look up at the scoreboard, and I got 4th. Not only did I get 4th, it was the first time in Olympic history that a hurdler ran that time and did not come away with a medal. It was the fastest Olympic overall race for that time. So even though I had to overcome so many odds, I still came up short. And when I left the stadium, I started to get backlash, a ton of backlash. The media just turned on me. And, in Beijing, when I hit the hurdle, everybody felt really bad for me. And they're like, oh, she'll overcome, she'll be back. But this time, because I had went from number 1 to like, oh, wait, what happened? They're like, Lolo doesn't deserve the attention. She doesn't deserve a shoe sponsor. People were furious that I got 4th at the Olympics. And for me, it was hard because I was really proud of that race, having come off of spine surgery to get that. I wasn't even supposed to be able to, make the team, but it didn't matter. People were furious. Some of my teammates were angry. They were angry that I was getting attention about my story, and they were like, well, I just won this medal. Where's my attention? So it was just terrible. And I went home and I fell into a big depression. It was the first time I didn't want to run. I didn't want to be an athlete again. I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. And I was just really frustrated. And I didn't know what the plan God had for me. I felt like, well, God, you say you give us victory and you make it all work. It doesn't feel like it's working. Like, I don't understand. I felt hopeless. And, I was just sitting there depressed, and one of my friends called me up and she's like, I think you should go out for the bobsled team. She's like, they've tried to recruit you. And I don't know if many of you guys know this movie. Some of you guys will. But who has not seen Cool Runnings? I mean, come on. It's like one of the most iconic movies. And so I was like, well, I for sure don't. My heart's so broken from track. I feel like I've done everything to get this medal. I've thrown the whole book at it, and I keep coming up short. And so I was like, I'll try it. I mean, it's not track. It will remove the pressure. No one's going to talk about me being an Olympic athlete, and I can just try a new sport. And so that's when I went out to try bobsled in Lake Placid, New York. And when I say that was one of the most terrifying things, I don't know what I was thinking, you guys. That was to this day. It was, I can't even, no, it's not like a roller coaster. It's not like that. Being in a bobsled is like being put in a metal trash can and thrown off Mount Everest. And they're like, that's the sport. And I'm like, what? They're like, no, that's the sport. Like, they actually, this sport was based on a group of guys trying to do these rickety sleds down a mountain, and they were drinking, and so that's how the foundation of the sport is. But so I go out to the Olympic Training Center, and, they're being gentle with me because they realize I'm coming from track. So track is like the posh sport, It's, we only carry a small little backpack. We're usually in sunny places. So they're trying not to scare me too much. But it didn't matter. The moment they took me to my first practice, and I'm seeing sleds crash, I'm seeing people get dumped, I'm seeing people take their helmet off, and the girls have tears coming down their face. And I'm like, what? No, I don't. Too late, got to go down. So I just get on the line and push the bobsled and try not to think about the next 45 seconds because I have no clue what's about to happen. So I jump in the bobsled. There's no seatbelt. You are in the bobsled by just holding on the sides of the frame. That's it. So if you let go, I mean, who knows? So we're going down, and I remember they told me before we got in the bobsled, they were like, look, to make this easier, just count the curves, and then you'll know exactly where you're at on the track. There's 22 curves, count them, you'll be good. So I'm like, get in the bobsled, I'm counting 1, 2, oh my gosh, Lord Jesus, please, I promise you, just get me through this. I will do whatever you want. It was the most terrifying thing. I thought we were gonna crash on every curve. We get down the track, the pilot jumps out, she pats me on the back, and she goes, yes, good job. And I was like, oh my gosh, I thought we were gonna crash. She's like, that was the best trip I've had here. It was the smoothest trip. What are you talking about? And I was like, oh, that's what it's like to be in a bobsled. So she was like, we didn't want to tell you this, but most people after their first run pack their stuff in the Olympic Training Center and head back to the airport. And I was like, well, I'm glad you didn't tell me that. So I kept at it for some reason, with the odds being stacked against me and just being out of my element. That was what I needed to recover from just the heartbreak and the press, and just needed to step away. And sometimes when you're in that fork of the road moment and you're stuck and you're like, man, I've tried everything. It's not working. Sometimes just trying something new will help re-spark what you thought you've lost. And so that's what I did. I just plugged away in bobsled. I actually ended up making the Winter Olympic team and competing with Jasmine Ventilator. And we did really well. We had the 3rd and 4th best pushes, but it was Jasmine's first Olympic experience. We didn't have so much a good drive down the track. But for me, it was just complete healing. And it was also what cemented me as an Olympic athlete, because there's hundreds of Olympic medalists. There's so many of them, and they're so blessed and honored. And I would love to be an Olympic medalist. There's only 11 people from the United States that have competed in a Summer and Winter Olympics. So although I don't have that coveted trophy, for me, it's much more valuable that I've looked failure, defeat, criticism, doubts, and overcame and created my own sense of victory. And that's essentially what we're to make of the hardships in life. So when you're having, this huge, amazing hope is not defeated. For me, that's everything. It's what I've lived my life by, because when something tries to swipe my hope or tell me I can't do it, my job is to overcome. And that's what you need. And if you can't do it on your own, you need a team or a coach or a church or a community that helps you get through that process. And everyone who's helped me along the way has helped me along to become a stronger athlete. And I know I've gone up here and I've talked about how I didn't win this Olympics or that race. Here's the crazy thing. I've actually won a lot. I'm a 3-time world champion. I'm one of the only athletes that has won a world championship in track and field and bobsled. I broke the world championship record. I broke the American record. Those are never the things I talk about in detail. My victories are amazing, but they're not the things that I'm most proud of. I'm most proud of the things that tried to break me and I overcame. So when you guys are here and you're donating and you're helping out, whether it's your time you're investing, your money you're investing, you're planting seeds in someone else, those seeds of hope that they can take and run with, that they can take and do amazing things. And even if they don't have this overall victory, I don't have my overall victory, but I have peace, I have happiness, and I know I've inspired other athletes and other people not to give up on their dreams. So I just wanted to thank you guys again for having me out here. I wanted to thank you if you've already donated tonight or plan on donating, because you are changing lives. And I hope you truly know that. If you don't see it, you don't see where your money goes after this event, please remember my story of how someone helped the Salvation Army. That Salvation Army helped me from my family being homeless on the streets, provided Thanksgiving meals, Christmas meals. Some of my Christmas presents came from the Salvation Army. And I just want to thank you. And I hope that your heart has the compassion to help others in this community. Thank you so much.